Hi everybody. Okay, so my name's Nick. This is Big Boosted Garage. Today we're working on a 2006 Subaru Impreza WRX. Not the STI, so it's not as cool, I guess, but this one does have some modifications that we're doing to it. So, on this one, we had an issue. So, third gear went bad on the Glass 5-speed, which I don't believe is as common as second gear on this transmission, but whatever. We had to replace the transmission, which is actually sitting right over there. So, the transmission is in, and the new turbo is in. Now, what happened with the turbo is that basically bearings failed in it, and all the seals went bad, so there's a lot of shaft play in there, so we had to replace that too. So we replaced it with a 20G turbo, pictured right here. And this turbo does offer, I guess, more performance potential than the turbo that he had in it. Now, I believe what he had swapped in there was I believe it's the VF34. It's the STI turbo for this year. Now, the car was bought like this, and there were some issues that I ran into while doing this transmission and turbo swap. Now, I'm going to go over a couple of them here. So, the biggest issue that we had here was really getting the trans to match up. I don't know how to explain that perfectly, but here, let me show you. So we have this slave cylinder right here. Now this slave cylinder would mount on the front of the transmission in front of the fork. So basically this end is facing towards the front of the motor. Now this would push in the fork to release release pressure on the clutch, pushing the springs on the pressure plate. Now this style was for this transmission, which was the 2006 transmission that originally came with the car. Now the transmission we got was a little bit different. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and pull off that slave real quick. So here's the other slave cylinder. This slave cylinder, on the other hand, sits behind the fork and will push the fork forward. Whereas this one, this is basically how they were set up. So this one was sitting back, facing the front of the transmission. This pin would sit in front of the fork, pushing backwards. So this would push on the fork, push the fork forward, and it would bring the pressure plate springs back. Now this requires a different throwout bearing, a different pressure plate, and basically we had to swap the pressure plate with the transmission as well. We were able to keep the clutch because the clutch was upgraded, and so was the flywheel. We had a lightweight flywheel. Everything bolted up, made sure everything was balanced, everything worked out pretty well with that. So this is the only issue that some people may run into, because the transmission we got was labeled as an 05 to 07 WRX transmission. Now, obviously, these slave cylinders are not the same. So, easiest way to fix it, literally just swap the pressure plates. That's really as simple as it gets. If you are facing this issue where you got a transmission that perhaps has a different slave cylinder configuration for these WRXs. Now, I believe the 05 was the last year of the Bug-Eye, and this is a Hawkeye. So, I don't know if there was much of a change in drivetrain and platform, because I'm not really a Subaru expert, but as far as with this, everything did go smoothly with just some modifications. Also with the turbo. That's another thing we could talk about. The turbo on this was, it didn't go as smoothly as I wanted it to, because on the install, when I took out the original turbo, it had coolant and oil feeds and drains. This is the coolant feed pipe. Now this on the original turbo would sit like this. Coolant would go in to the top of the turbo, slosh around there, cool down the kernel, and then come out the bottom. Now, this turbo had a plug in the drain and the fill. So I was kind of perplexed by that for a bit, because I don't really do many turbo swaps. I do mostly just, tuning, configuration. With this swap, I had to get a different turbo, so it didn't work out as perfect as I wanted to, mostly because the coolant pipes the way they were set up is just, this turbo doesn't need it. This turbo is cooled mostly by oil, or in this case all by oil. Now, people who are running into that issue, no, you do not have to use the coolant pipes. So instead you're going to have to do is you're going to have to find a way to block them off. There's numbers of ways to do this. I would say the easiest way, they're basically rubber hosing that ends in a dome, so it's completely sealed off. It's basically a plug. So you could do that, plug it off, use a hose clamp, get it tight so that way no coolant is spilling out of these orifices. That's probably the best thing you could do, because really running coolant, the factory banjo bolts that came with the other turbo, the STI turbo, did not fit this 20G. So, this is the first update on this Subaru project that we are doing here. Hopefully, we will get it done soon. It's mostly me here actually, but we'll get it done soon hopefully, and let's hope it turns out well. We're going to bring it to the dyno soon, and let's just see how much power it could possibly make. Because with this turbo, and all these little supporting mods we did, we have a parent intercooler piping and whatnot. We'll see if we can just squeeze a little bit more power out of it. Hopefully go standalone ECU as well. Standalone fuel management, sorry. And maybe get rid of that MAF, because I'll be honest, MAFs, they aren't the best for creating a lot of power. Coke. MAFs aren't really the best for creating power, so we're going to go ahead and try to lop that off, try to use pressure sensors, temperature sensors, inlet and outlet sensors, just to see how much more power we can get out of this motor. Alright guys, thank you for watching. This has been Big Boost in Garage, Subaru, update number 1. Thanks for watching.